Now, you can't afford to miss out on this one. Are you a football fan? Does a trip to a football match get you worried? Well, on Bottom Line this Tuesday, Premier League Board Chairman Emmanuel Saffa Abdulai talks to host Joseph Egbenda Kapua about the nation's most popular sport, football.
Don't forget the number 030-022-639. Now, Emmanuel, let's get started. Take us through the structure of the Premier League Board.
Thank you very much. So, primarily you have 7 members of the board who are appointed. Basically, 3 members of the board are nominated by the clubs and 3 by the SLFA, after which then you will have a chairman who is independently appointed in agreement, with all the parties. It has to be between the SLFA and the clubs agreeing for someone to be the Premier League Board chairman. So that's how I was appointed. We have Alaji Kamba from JJ from Blackpool, and we also have Samara who works for EcoBank, who is also a member of the board. We have Pasama. These are people who were basically nominated by the SLFA. Then we have Pomerite. Pomerite also represents Freetown City Council as a member of the board. Then what we did when we took over, we realized that we needed a number of people to be able to carry out the task. So we basically co-opted a number of people, including 2 women and 3 other gentlemen. Musupele Bangrua, J1, who is representing veterans. We also co-opted a couple of other people just to ensure that we carry out the task that we have to do.
Where are the members drawn from?
Well, like I said, the clubs nominate 3 people. So you have Pomerite, JJ, and Alaji Kamba representing the clubs. So all the football clubs,
all the clubs
that are playing in the Premier League will nominate 3 members.
How is that done?
Normally they will consult. They have the WhatsApp group where they will consult, and I think this time it's FC Cologne, Mighty Blackpool, and Freetown City Council that actually gained the nomination. Then you have SLFA nominating 3 people, so that's 6, and then the chairman is appointed in agreement with everybody.
Those that you co-opt, do they have voting rights?
No, they usually don't have voting right, because statutorily they are just co-opted members. And one of the things that I thought we should do was actually to bring people into the Premier League board that have served Sierra Leone and that will bring added value. And we thought this was a time to bring everybody on board football. For quite too long there's been disagreement, acrimony, and division within football. So when we took over, we thought it was prudent to bring quite a number of people who are respected in society and who will help us execute their duties.
And how has the appointment impacted on the board's administration, if you like?
Well, it has helped us a lot, because first thing is we gave confidence to a lot of people that this was not going to be just a clique of those who were going to be appointed at the top level, and we came down to the level of people like Musupele, who played football, female football and tennis for Sierra Leone. Agnes Abu, who is a veteran referee. She was very instrumental in setting up Football Referees Association and has served at the highest level. And a lot of people realize that, this is very important. We also brought in Asma James of 98.1, a very seasoned journalist and a member of the Eastern Lions Eastern Lions Football Club executive. So we tried to broaden the base to ensure that we give confidence in people, and these people have really helped us. 98 basically has been our major mouthpiece, and together with other radio stations. And then we had a banker, Mohammed Samara at EcoBank, who's also been very instrumental in helping us take things through.
I guess your first task as chairman was to resume the Premier League itself. How were you able to meet that challenge?
Well, it was quite a challenge, because when we took over, there was nothing. There's no structure. Secondly, there was no finances. So we basically started what did I say, ferreting for money. We were looking for money everywhere, asking corporate bodies. And then we realized it was going to be difficult because, there's been a bad brand about football. One of the things is that there's been too much acrimony, fighting, disagreement in the game. So most of the corporate bodies that we met were basically reluctant to put money. And, having been around football for a while, I thought the only way we could have solved this was to go to government and ask them for money. And I basically talked to a couple of people in government, and when I eventually met the president, I said, look, it's not going to be football if you don't fund this. And he said to me, we will put some money into it.
How does it feel like, stepping up to resume football, which has been, away for nearly 4 years?
Initially, I was a little bit very apprehensive, reluctant in the sense because, at that point when, and again, we need to understand this. A lot of people don't understand this. Being Premier League board chairman is not a government appointment. It's an appointment of the SLFA and the circles. So because FIFA is fighting so hard to keep football outside of politics, it's always left on its own. So after elections, after monitoring elections and doing a lot of civil society work, it was time for me to take a break. I wanted to leave. I wanted to go away and study. And then people started approaching me about Premier League, and I turned it down at first go. I said, I don't have the time. I was going to go to school, and the voice started getting louder, and I thought maybe it's something to give back, considering the fact that I had been 8 years in football, managing Old Edwards Football Club as chairman and one of the financiers. So I thought, well, let me see if we could give this a try and bring some amount of sanity. So then it was a difficult task, but now it feels very excited that I accepted it.
And equally so, we saw the euphoria at the opening ceremony of this year's Premier League. Hundreds, if you like, or thousands of people at the National Stadium. It was all over the place, and people were like saying, oh, maybe this is bringing football alive. It comes at a time when the country is suspended by FIFA from taking part in international football and like. What does the love for football by Sierra Leoneans, what message does that send as demonstrated during the opening ceremony?
Well, so here's the thing. I think what is happening in Sierra Leone football is not my making or the board's making. I think what has been manifested is the fact that Sierra Leoneans adore football. They love football. It's a game that they will continue to support, and they're turning out in tens of thousands. We sold 40,000 tickets on the first game. Like 40,000 people crammed into the stadium and watched a football match and went home peacefully. What this is basically saying to FIFA is that all along you've gotten the situation wrong in Sierra Leone. People want football. They want to watch football. They want to support their football teams. Save for the fact that FIFA wanted to impose one person on the will of Sierra Leoneans. So I guess for me, I think FIFA should now understand. And I'm going to hastily say this. Just a couple of weeks ago, the Super Sport African Sport Program said the Sierra Leone Premier League is the most watched local league in Africa. Yes, so I'm sure FIFA is watching. They realize that with or without them, the people of Sierra Leone are willing to play football. But you cannot punish a people because you favor one person to be in charge of football. You cannot punish a whole nation because you disagree on who is going to lead the football association. The people of Sierra Leone have a right to elect their leadership. The people of Sierra Leone have a right to disagree with whatever leadership that they've had in the past, and they have a right to want to take a different path in pushing football forward. And I think FIFA should listen to this.
And with the love as demonstrated by Sierra Leoneans, is it likely, like you say, FIFA should listen to this, is it likely to attract the attention of FIFA such that, apart from the court action, which is probably what they are leaning on, they might have a change of heart or mind?
I don't think FIFA has a choice. And because the issue that we're talking about is a country that has manifested, that has demonstrated that they love soccer, they want football, they want to play football. And this has only happened after, the FIFA preferred presidency has been set aside. And I think this is something that FIFA should understand, that, okay, why all of a sudden things have turned around? Why all of a sudden everybody, all the disagreeing parties are now on the same table? They should understand that, it's time to really move on. I mean, they have to understand this. But what FIFA has said clearly, and we need to get this clear, what FIFA has said clearly to the government of Sierra Leone is that they are waiting for the outcome of the court's action. FIFA had said after the meeting of the Vice President and the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, there was a press release they put on the website. They said they were waiting for the court action to finish, irrespective of the outcome, irrespective of who won. Now they will lift the ban. So now the onus is not on anybody, it's on the judiciary of Sierra Leone. It's the judiciary of Sierra Leone that should hasten that this case has been in court for a while, irrespective of where they want to rule. There's no pressure, but it's time to bring it to conclusion, to a speedy conclusion.
Now, Emmanuel, what is your consideration about reviving and promoting youth and women's football?
I think the only way we can actually sustain the National Premier League is to promote youth football, because we have to have an academy type of system. In fact, that's the reason why when the Premier League started, one of the rules that we had was each one of these teams should have a team B, so that you don't just rely on the age players or those who are now fit to play at the Premier League level, so you can nurture the young people. I also think that women football is taking it's gaining momentum, because I'm on the WhatsApp group and I've seen a lot of organizations being done. Recently there was a conference in Bo where they went to arrange and get things going. So I think these are the things that we need to do. There's a priority aspect of things that we need to give our young people, so that they have something else.
The question is how are you doing that?
Well, I mean, they're doing it. I mean, so for example, WAFA, the Western Area Football Club, is now organizing the First Division League, which is basically one level below the Premier League. And we hope that government will also listen and support them somehow, because when you do that, Western Area has 24 clubs. Now it's 30 players times 24 that you're creating employment for. Premier League has 13 clubs now, because FC Johansen did not participate in the tournament, in the ongoing competition. So it's actually 30 times 13, which is 360. Essentially, the First Division will provide more avenue for young people for employment and for growth than the Premier League. So I think government needs to pay attention to it. Both First Division and non-division leagues are about to commence. The Southern Province, the East are working on this, and another working on this. So when you talk about youth league, they're actually in the process of starting. And this is something that I had said in the past in several interviews, that what you need to do is to start the Premier League, and all the other layers will just fall into place. And then I think the women's football will also commence soon, because I keep seeing some progress on
You just mentioned FC Johansen not taking part. Don't know why.
Well, I mean, it was very clear. FC Johansen President Aisha Johansen said FIFA did not recognize the league that we're playing, so therefore they will not participate. And also, I mean, this is something that I need to clear the air. FIFA does not need to recognize the Sierra Leone National League. In fact, the FIFA regulation is that the FIFA statute says every country must organize its national league. FIFA has nothing to do with it. So they don't recognize, or say we don't recognize a league. What they do is that, what FIFA will do is to sanction your national team from participating in international competition, because they believe that, according to the FIFA story, that because the case is in the court and the case involves the Football Association, they thought it was a political interference. Now, that's something very different. But there is no country, it's never been anywhere in the world where FIFA will say, you can't play your national league, we don't recognize your national league. In fact, the FIFA recent motto is play the game. So irrespective of political disagreement in the FA, you cannot stop the leagues from playing. So what we are doing is in consonance with the spirit and intent of FIFA.
As a new PNB chairman, was it necessary to approach FC Johansen, maybe to have a change of mind?
Yes, we did. In fact, the league was supposed to have commenced on the 10th of of January, and we had to postpone because we had to extend another olive branch to them and say, look, this is about these young people. It's no longer about us. It's no longer about the disagreeing parties. It's not about our egos, because this is the issue. There's so much ego in football. It's not about the ego. It's about encouraging and allowing these young people to develop their own skills and further their careers. And then eventually, you know, when the league started, there was a press release which they said they won't participate. They wrote to me, and then we got back to them, and then they said they were not playing. And so I think we did what we could to encourage everyone to come on board and push football forward.
Any measures to tap talents from secondary school, the school leagues?
The school leagues have been a little bit acrimonious of late because, as usual, violence has taken over there. We hope that we could do a lot of awareness raising and sensitization in schools, and ensure that the young people play in schools. Because, for example, at the Ole Rodents Football Club, we've been talking about going to the school and build our school team, which will be a feeder program for our school. So, I think Sierra Leone has a history of producing people from schools, the Mohammed Kalan and others. I think this is something that the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Sport needs to work on. That's outside our purview as a Premier League board.
Is there any, or are there any suggestions you can prefer to have these people? Because we are talking about talents, and this might be the future.
What I think they should do is to ensure that there is a school league that will play with a lot of awareness raising before the league. But also what has been happening is that the cliques in the schools and have created a lot of tensions. Particularly after games, they will attack people and damage vehicles. I think we need, firstly, the first point of curtailing crime is deterrence. Whoever is caught perpetuating violence should be dealt with. Second aspect is we need a lot of education. And third thing is the schools must take responsibility for their schools and their children that are coming out to support their schools. And then we will move forward.
Now, Emmanuel, you would observe that the standard of education of our players generally leaves much to be desired. Meeting the press, is as bad as not meeting them at all. I was wondering what your educational package is for players.
Okay, so what I have in mind, and which we've been discussing at the board, we have two-track approach. Now we have this emergency ad hoc program where you have players who are now 25, 27, 28, they are going out of their playing prime, and we need to get them playing. Then we'll go one step down to develop the educational system and in the schools. That's why we want the clubs to have their junior teams, and it's going to be mandatory that the junior players will go to school and get some amount of education. So
who supports them?
What?
Who supports them?
Who supports the schools?
Well, the junior players.
Well, I mean, schools are supposed to give scholarships to good players. This is how we grew up in Freetown. We were playing football. We got scholarships. People got scholarships because they were not paying school fees. Because
were you a good player?
I was always a good player. I'm a good striker. I've been scoring goals all over the place. You should see that. Even for the Sierra Leone Bar Association, I'm still all time.
What we consider football clubs? Probably you want to talk about the Bar Association.
No, I'm talking about Ole Rodents. About 3-4 years ago, I was the leading striker for Ole Rodents Football Club. I have played at that top level. So when I talk about being a striker, yes, I know what it means to being the proper and fit and proper striker. So I think one of the things we actually need to do is to incentivize the young people to play sport so that they get scholarship like you do in the US. And then you will get most of them go to school. But at the same time, it has to be a condition that before you participate in the sport, you have to be going to school.
I agree. Now let's also look at this other aspect of your administration. You would also imagine that the first few games of this year's Premier League witnessed an impressive performance both from the clubs and the fans. But we've seen several matches, ending in violence. For instance, when supporters of Port Authority, reportedly, as reports suggest, molested a referee for allegedly making a wrong decision during the match at the National Stadium. What is responsible for this rising degeneration of sportsmanship?
Okay, there are a couple of things. So firstly, there has not been several games that ended in violence. There's been a couple of basically 4 of those games. We've played 96 games, and only 4 we've had really extreme violence and problems. And I think there are 2 sides of it. One,
4 is not only.
It's 4 is only out of 96. That's only, you can imagine, which means that we're very disappointed that even the 4 games, erupted into violence. But there are 2 things. One is football is a game of passion. A lot of people go to support their teams with everything, and sometimes when your passion is that high, your sense of judgment is very low, and your reactions to things is also very low, and sometimes it can be very snappy, and we've seen that happening in the Premier League. What we have done, we have enforced the rules. Now, Port Authority and their players that actually abused the referee and kicked him, they were banned for 4 games each. All those players were banned 4 games. Port Authority was fined as a club. Bow Rangers fought in Bow. Their stadium has been banned for 2 games. They will play 2 of their home matches away. They still have appealed it, I must say, and the appeals committee is having a conversation on that. Connaught also had violence in Connaught, and their stadium has been basically banned from hosting 2 of their games. Some of the players have been suspended for 4 matches. We also have issues where people have complained extremely about the officiating, the match officials. Some officials have been demoted, some of them have been suspended. So in all of this fantasy of football, you will have deviant behaviors. You will have people who will step out of the lines. You have people who will want to take the law into their hands, and that's where we come in with the hammer.
What's the approach in using that hammer?
The hammer is basically to deter things. We insist that, look, no one is above the law. Not Bow Rangers, not Eastern Lions, not my own Old Edwardens. For example, the Old Edwardens club played against Central Parade, and then there were allegations that they attacked the referee. Now, some of the officials have been banned from games, and Old Edwardens were fined, I think, about 4 million games. And I have no control over that, because you have a disciplinary emergency committee that will look at this complaint and they'll come out. I have absolutely no control. So no one, absolutely, not Edwards, not Blackpool, not Lions, not FC Cologne or Bow or Kenman, no one is above the law.
Is deducting points a good idea as well? Because if you're banning players...
No, we didn't deduct a point. That's the point. A lot of people are missing it. So the punishment for Bow was simple. And the rule is that if you touch the match officials, right, your stadium will be banned for 6 matches. What we did was that we thought that was too much on Bow and Connaught and Damsters, so we gave them 2 match ban each. If the match started officially and did not complete or ended, did not end because there was violence, the host team will forfeit the point. So we did not deduct a point from Bow. The match did not end. It started in the 90th or 91st minute, and then they stormed the field. So they did not get a point. The visiting team got the point. That's what the rules, the Premier League rules and regulation is saying. Until we enforce these rules, people are going to think they are above the law. People are going to think that their proximity to the players, or their proximity to anything whatsoever that they think will propel them into violence should be used to abuse the rules, and then creates chaos. And the consequences will be, now we have about 4 matches that we're talking about. If you have 10, the police is going to declare football match a kind of security threat, and they're going to stop football, and not 2, 3 people or 10 people are going to let the whole nation suffer. Rather, your team will not play home. Rather, your players will be suspended or will find your club and you pay the fines.
Now, yeah, you're talking about fines. We know fines have been imposed. For example, the Cambo Eagles and the Diamond Stars match in Kenema, I suppose. You know, fines were imposed on Cambo Eagles of Kenema and also the Diamond Stars of Kono. We're talking about 5 million Leone, yes, which is about less than $1,000.
Yes,
as the case may be. I think Diamond Stars we have fined about $800.
Yes,
that's 10 million leones or so. How do you measure the amount of money, that should be paid by these clubs?
Okay, so what we did was that the Premier League regulation has a very minimal amount, but what the Premier League regulation did was that in aggravating circumstances, now the Premier League board or the disciplinary committee can increase the fine, because we want to curtail this violence and hooliganism. We increase the fines. And I know how these clubs are struggling to get money and resources. When you pay 5 or 10 million euros, you feel the brunt. If you don't pay 5 or 10 million euros, the Premier League board in a few weeks is going to issue another set of checks of 50 million to each club. Who will deduct it from your subsidies? Because this is something that is supposed to deter you. Now, the clubs have a responsibility to control their fans. I'll give you an example. In 2005, Roma was playing against, I think it was Fenerbahce or Galatasaray, and referee Frisk was stoned with one coin. You know what UEFA did? They closed the stadium of Rome, and Roma played behind empty stadium.
But that one coin was as bad as killing the referee.
Yes, exactly. So that's the point. What we have seen in the league in Bo, what we have seen in the league in Kono, or what we saw in Kanema was that, and what we saw at Parade Grounds is the situation where people actually went into the field and mobbed somebody's son, trying to beat him. If you beat him and then something happens, you kill him.
But don't you think the fines we are talking about are too low? One supporter can pay off.
A lot of people think it's too low, but these clubs, I know their financial strength. This is why, if you beat a referee, we'll close your stadium. If you don't provide adequate security, we'll fine you 5 million. Now, if the match did not end, we deduct your point. So these are different offenses. So
I'm talking about the fines. One supporter can pay off 5 million euros or 10 million euros.
Yeah, it could be, but some of these clubs don't really have that amount of money. It's 5 million. They're all complaining. They're struggling. We see how they're struggling to even host matches. When you run football,
we've also seen pledges. During the unveiling.
Yes, those pledges were mere size flash shows. You should not ask for the money. Go back into the account of these clubs. A few days ago, I was asking. I grew up supporting Eastern Lions, but I was asking. Now I support all the Rhodians. I was asking someone, I said, but that's where all this money is when I've been getting done now. And we were joking about it. People will make pledges, but it's difficult to make commitment. But these clubs are struggling financially. But what has really helped them is the gate ticket. And we need to focus on that. If people are fighting, if there's a tendency of fear of violence, then the spectators are going to stay away from the matches. And that's the problem. Then you're going to deprive your own club of having the resources that they're supposed to get. So what we have to do is to punish the clubs and encourage spectators to go to a game. So I asked a friend again a few days ago, I said, you go watch this game? He said, another affects them also. When you have this kind of conversation, we have to discourage that kind of message.
Now, also, Emmanuel, there are questions around the fines and penalties imposed on clubs. For example, take the Camry Eagles and the Diamond Stars clash in Kenema. They were fined 5 million and 10 million respectively. There's this argument that these fines were not imposed or levied on the recommendations of the Premier League board, rather the disciplinary committee of the Premier League board. Why was that?
Yes, because there are two ways. The Premier League board has the authority to impose fines there and then. Right? So at that first game that was disrupted, which was the Camry Eagles versus Connor, there was no disciplinary committee. We were trying to constitute the disciplinary committee. Now we as a board have a right to impose fines, and which we did, and that's the kind of standards that have been set. Now we have constituted the disciplinary committee. There is Simi Thomas, Dr. Fatou Taki, Isaac Masako is the chair, Inspector Kelly Mlamin, and Leonard Taylor, who is a lawyer who just became a judge today. These are the 5 people who are on that disciplinary committee. Now they meet and they take decisions independently, following the rules. There is also now an appeals committee. Lawyer Victor Lansana, lawyer Abdul Tijan Cole, former ACC commissioner, and then we have Mary Hector, who works for OANS, so the 3 people, and I am ex officio in all of these committees. So because there was no committee, the Premier League board is mandated to take the decision that we took. So this is something that people need to understand. Once you take the rules and regulation, you'll find out that we have those powers to do what we did.
Now, and I'm going to stay with you on that. The fact that you're saying there was no disciplinary committee at the moment. Now let's take it this way. By a letter dated, I think the 2nd or 23rd of February this year, with the subject, I think, SLFA 2019 Premier League Board Emergency Committee. You made it appear as though the disciplinary committee was newly constituted, but you actually bypassed the committee in levying the fines.
No, that's what I tried to explain just now. That committee was appointed after the first fine. The first fine was Diamond Stars, Cambo Eagles. The board has a right to impose.
The argument is that there was this committee. It was already there, and that it was illegal that you find Cambo Eagles and Diamond Stars.
You're not getting it from me. There was no committee. I constituted the committee. When it happened, when the first incident happened, we had to take a decision because there was no committee. And after which, all of these discussions came in. We tried to point out to people that there was no committee. And then eventually, we said we need quickly to put together the committee. And that's why you're talking about the letter. So that letter was after we had taken the decision.
With the committee in place now, do you still reserve the authority, the power to find clubs where you think?
No, we haven't been doing it. We have delegated it now to the committee. We can't retain a delegated power. It's the role of the committee to ensure that they carry out their duties, which is spelled out in the rules.
All right, continue to stay with us. Let's see what our viewers and probably listeners are saying here. Congratulations, Mr. Abdulai, for taking Sierra Leone Premier League to another level. Secondly, as you have said, FIFA has no hand in any country's domestic league. We are really impressed and we are praying for more efforts to be done. Mr. Abdulai, Moyamba District is not part of the Premier League. Please tell me the reasons. What is the punishment for clubs that are found guilty of match fixing? Sierra Leone Premier League is a good competition. What has the SLFA done towards the bad behavior of clubs that were involved in the act of fighting? What is Sierra Leone's position with FIFA? Some text messages, Emmanuel, I don't know if you can remember a few of them, but then if you are just joining us, the program is Bottom Line and it's coming to you on this channel, SLBC Television. You can also join us on Facebook and also on YouTube. My guest tonight is the chairman of the Premier League Board, Emmanuel Saffa Abdulai. Like I said, in case you are just joining us, you can be part of the program by sending your text messages to the number you're seeing on the screen. We will continue to call the number again, but then you can also send our text messages on our Facebook page, SLBC TV channel 31, and also YouTube, like I said, or send us SMS on 033-022-639. Now, some messages here. Moyamba District.
It's not just about Moyamba District. Now you have Bombali, Tonkolili, Moyamba, Kailan. There are a couple of things. But so what the thing is that the football league is not organized on a demographic basis in the sense it is not a representation of every district. So basically every district is supposed to develop their football team and play their Division 1 league, then they will qualify to a playoff. If you qualify, then you can now come to the Premier League and play. So there was also, it's also important that this Moyamba person is raising the question, because a lot of people had thought, why is Usum Star or no Northern team in the Premier League? Usum Star, before the league basically stopped, Usum Stars was in the Premier League for about 3 or 4 seasons, and in the process they got relegated, right? They got relegated. I think they came 14th out of 14 clubs in the league, so they got relegated, and all the teams from Freetown actually qualified. So every season you have 2 teams relegated, and then 2 promoted from the nationwide Division 1. So the North will organize their Division 1, the South, the East, and the North will...
How are the 2 selected?
No, what you do is two teams qualify to the playoff, just like the English model.
Okay.
They come to Freetown and do the playoff, and then they do this round robin basis, and then the first two teams that go to the final will qualify. So it's actually proper in pure football. There's nothing about politics or regional issues, because a lot of people who were trying to undermine this game, we're talking about, oh, it's because of the government that is in power, that's the reason why they're trying to get the northern clubs. And that's not correct at all. It is not correct at all. Northern clubs have always been in team. For example, we used to have Bombali. What is the name?
Wusum Stars?
No, not Wusum. There was another team, Baibuya Warriors. They were in the Premier League for at some point, where you have people like Seri and others who came to the national team and play for Sierra Leone. But if you got relegated, you obviously will have to go go play the first.
And somebody is asking about clubs that are found guilty of match fixing.
We haven't found anyone guilty of match fixing, but when you're found guilty of match fixing, it's basically outright ban. They ban the club, they ban the officials, and you go. Basically, match fixing is not allowed. It's not tolerated. That's why we're watching the referees, we're watching the match officials. We're very, very keen on it, because if you record, Sierra Leone has this bad image of match fixing, something which they have never been able to prove. There was a couple of names that were published, including match officials and football players, O'Brien and others, whose names were published by the Aisha Johansson-led executive about match fixing. 5 years after, they have done nothing to investigate it. So we're very careful. The integrity of this game is paramount to us.
Now, I also understand the referees committee also slammed between 1 and 3 week suspension on about 3 referees for offences ranging from failing to issue out the right card. The committee says the 3 connived with other match officials to give undue advantage to a rival team in the game. Is this not putting the integrity of the integrity and maybe even trust of refereeing into question?
It is always the case. I mean, one of the things that we have to understand, the human error aspect of the game is part of the game. We have to accept that. It is only recently that the VAR is now coming into effect to try to correct the human error or things that we can't really see. But one of the things we did as a board was, when we started, we trained the referees, the officials, to basically update them, because they haven't been doing proper refereeing for 4 years. So we update them with the new FIFA rules and regulation, and they have this onus to actually deliver professionally, like optimally at that level. And so when they started basically misbehaving or performing below the standards, the referees committee had to come in and discipline them. In fact, those ones that you mentioned, it's not the worst. There's a particular referee that was demoted. He was demoted to the first division. This is how it's done. You are a top level referee when you're refereeing. You're officiating at the Premier League level, and you got demoted to the first division. There's a particular referee that was demoted because of his action. I think it was the match between Bull Rangers and Eastern Tigers, in which a goal was scored that even the Bull fans were saying a goal was given by the referee in favor of Bull Rangers, and the Bull Rangers fans were saying not to goal, not to goal. So basically whatever happened, how he saw that was up to him. But the referees committee sat down and watched the replays and realized that was grossly unprofessional, and they demoted him. So we are taking all necessary actions to ensure that every component of this league meets the standards that we want.
How are they promoted, the referees, from Division 1 to...
The referees committee has what they call the professional referee cadre, and then you have the first division referees. So you start at the lower level, and based on your performance, and basically as the older referees getting retired, then you get promoted based on your performance. Because we also have to understand that the referees have to be medically and physically fit, because they're all the time running. You will recall that in one of the games, one of the referees really had to be substituted because of a bad knee here at the National Stadium. So it's part of the process that you have to be physically, mentally fit for you to be able to do it.
How are they, recruited, if you like? The fact that they are deemed to be fit and proper persons, and at the 11th hour, these things happen to them?
No, I mean, this is human beings. I mean, so basically, when you have your vehicle, you go fix your vehicle, and on the way something happens. You know, it's a human being. What the referees would do, they train. They have their physical exercise, which they do, and you have to be fit. When I know, for example, that the referees committee has delisted a couple of referees who have not been going through the physical because they thought it is not proper for them. So there are standards which they should meet.
Now we understand you are also currently investigating a reported violence, in the match involving, I think, Post Authority and Blackpool. How far into the process?
Post Authority Blackpool game, a decision had been taken because that was the match in which the players actually thought the referee had favored Blackpool, and the Port players went and kicked and slapped the referee. Those players have been banned for 4 matches each, and we all know about it. What we are looking at now is a particular violence between the last game, Eastern Lions game. I think it was Eastern Lions Arsenal that ended in 0-0 draw, and the fans actually, they did not just provoke, incited, but they perpetrated violence on their own coach and their own team. Now, this is, any form of violence is discouraged in the Premier League, whether it's against your own player or your own officials. You cannot. Violence and football don't go together.
And I'm staying on the rising threat of violence, in the ongoing Premier League. You have also vowed to maintain a strict zero tolerance to violence during matches. Please describe how you would go about doing this.
Yeah, so we one of the things we're actually doing, we realized that the clubs, when we started, we had an agreement that if clubs are hosting, they provide their own security. This is the reason why we actually fined Cambo Eagles in the match against the Amo Stars, the first match in Kenema, because they did not provide adequate security. Now we have games that we classified as high-risk games, because of the tensions and stuff. You're supposed to bring in enough security. But what the board is now doing, the board has decided that we are now going to take over security of games in the second leg. So that's one of the things that we're going to do. And then we will ensure that we enforce the laws to the latter.
Given that responsibility to clubs initially, don't you think that was like a sad mistake?
No, it wasn't. It's always, everywhere in the world, clubs are supposed to...
We're talking about Sierra Leone. Yeah, we've not been talking about football for quite some time.
No, but you are hosting at your playing field. If you're hosting a game in Kono, the board is based in Freetown. Now you are supposed to know your LUCs and security apparatus. Before the board will leave Freetown and go to Kono and get this arranged, then it will be too much of an onus on us. So the clubs themselves thought they could arrange security.
So how are you doing that?
Most of the games that have played at the National Stadium have ended very peacefully. Yeah. The games that are playing outside of the National Stadium are the challenge. So what we have done is to appoint coordinators. We're now appointing coordinators from these districts and regions, from this playing fields, who will work on the security together with clubs.
Now, Sierra Leone has also loved football, religiously, but there is a broken system. Look at the approved school football field. People say it's maybe the best of the three if you consider Parade and also Atuga fields. What are you doing to address fix that system?
I think that's correct. The approved school is better off than Parade and Atuga field. Basically, what we wanted to do, when we met on the first day, a lot of people thought we were going to play all of the games, particularly Freetown games at nationals. I said no, we have to take the games to the communities. You understand? If we don't take the games to the communities, we can't excite the interest and the passion which we have. Now, what we have exposed is basically for government to realize that these are playing fields that we need to improve. Now, I have been jokingly talking to some senior government officials saying, look, next year you need to give us 20 billion so we can fix this playing field. Connaught field has been fixed. Bo has been fixed. Kenema is being fixed. Now, Freetown, where you have a bunch of the teams, you need to fix this playing field, and it won't cost you really much more than that. I mean, what you need is to try to have artificial top and then perimeter fence around this field, and I'm sure clearly you will be able to play on those fields. But essentially, my argument, which a lot of people at that point did not see, was that these players were playing on these pitches, right? This is where they were playing all these inter-areas games where they was really playing very well and stuff. So I thought for this season we could bite the bullet and play and then expose some of these structures and then see what we will do for the next season.
Do we have to wait until actually players get injured or some of them die? You have seen the pitches.
Players will always get injured. We have had collisions at the National Stadium. In fact, we've had more incidents.
But the ones at the Abdulai Stadium, the one at Parade and other areas are just a table.
No, but we haven't had any broken ankle from those fields. We have at the National Stadium, which we actually feel is a better pitch. So accidents or incidences of that nature are not basically because you're playing at Parade or because you're playing at a school. Now, what as a nation we've come to realize is that we have nice playing pitches around the country that we need to develop. Otherwise, we would have been talking in abstract, in theory. Oh, there is a pro school. Why aren't we playing at a pro school? Every time the clubs play at a pro school, the entire East will move to a pro school. When you play at the National Stadium, people who are in Wellington or Waterloo cannot come to the National Stadium. So this is what we're trying to develop. We're trying to ensure that people go to the games around their communities.
There are suggestions that you can actually use the National Stadium and probably even the field at Kintom, if only to provide opportunity to fix the other areas.
The Kintom field.
It's talking about the sanity. Have you actually, watched these players after the match and their standard, their state?
We have.
And do you really think that represents, the Premier League board? The kind of reputation that you
there are
have?
two problems about that. If we wanted all of these games to play at the National Stadium, we won't finish till August. And there's the rain. So we have to spread some of these games. That's one. The second thing is that I have watched players play around the world, and after the game, they've gone out of they are very dirty because of the way they played. It doesn't represent the status that we're talking about. We have to make do with what we have at this first leg. Now, this is I'm just talking to SLFA yesterday. So this is basically a warm-up for the league that will start in October or November of this year. We basically galvanizing everything, and I'm sure government is listening, and government has seen the huge economic and political potential that football has. It's for them to invest in it. I mean, President Bill has said on many times that for him it's about developing human capital. What we are doing in football is developing human capital. Some of these players, all of these boys are going to be exceptional footballers. Our national team, by the time FIFA lifts our band, our national team is going to be one of the best in Africa, I can tell you. Because these boys are playing every 3 days. They're playing, which means you have the stamina, you have the ability, you are properly trained, and you can play for your national team.
Emmanuel, talk to me about other facilities, the dressing rooms, ventilation, very appalling. What is the board doing?
Dressing room where?
Parade?
The parade doesn't even have much of the board won't do anything, and this is why I'm sitting here talking to government. I'm talking to government directly. This is something we need to fix. We need to fix it, not just government, even the private sector. So for example, you could get someone invest on an approved school. You could get some people put money and build a stadium, maybe a 5,000 or 10,000 seater stadium in an approved school, and rent it out to these clubs and rent it out to the community. You will make quite a lot of money out of this. So we are looking at banks, we are looking at the government, we are looking at international community, we are looking at everybody to invest into this lovely game.
Any comment on the split of sackings of coaches?
It is always the same. I think it was completely unfair when they started sacking coaches after 3 or 4 games. But you could also see that it's the competitiveness of the league. It's the passion. But I think the expectations are too much. So I support a team. I'm chairman of a club that is struggling, All Reddit, for example, right? My message to the executive and every members of All Reddit has been that, look, we just started. These young men did not even do a preseason. They just jumped into a league. A lot of people thought this league was not going to start at all. So the clubs were not really on proper preparation. Let us give them time. Let us give them half a season and see what will happen. And now you could see some of these teams are clicking. I mean, they're playing very well. Lions is doing better than they were. Blackpool were at the bottom of the table. Bull Rangers, they have a good team. They just need to curb the amount of violence and anger which their fans have. You see that the teams are picking up. Centre Parade had the same problems. So basically give the boys time and they will be able to match up to the standards.
Let's look at more messages coming in. Happy the Premier League is back. Let's play the game, please. Leoneans and forget about the fights against each other. Let's play the game and forget FIFA. I will say bravo to Mr. Abdulai for giving the people of this country quality football match, but we want prompt actions against any team, player or official that commits crime against our laws. Bottom line, please ask Chairman Emmanuel why, for example, a team from the provinces playing in the western area, the referee is always from Freetown. For example, Bo Rangers playing FC. You have to answer this.
Are you supporting Bo Rangers?
No, come on. Okay.
Eagles. You supporting Eagles. Okay.
You see the Eagles.
Okay, so Eagles started, they were struggling and they're playing very well. Okay, here's the thing. There's a demographic imbalance in Sierra Leone. Most of the referees are in Freetown. Most of the real standard referees are in Freetown. We have some, scattered across the country. What we expect these referees to do is to be professional enough, whether you're from Freetown or from the provinces. When they give you a match, you should be able to properly and professionally handle it. So I don't really look at where you're coming from, where you don't come from. For example, all the Rodents played against Bo in Bo, and the referee came from corner. I had questions on some of his decisions, but this is the game of football. I was passionate about Eros winning. We did not win, but I questioned some of his decisions. But I can't say you can get a referee from corner because we're playing Bo. I mean, I think we're putting too much of meanings into regional proximities and demographies and stuff, which will not help the game.
Now, your team, the Oded Rhodians, continue to crawl. They were even humbled by the Camboy Eagles of Kenya.
Humbled? I don't know whether it's humbled.
So what's happening with respect to your club? You're the chairman of the board, and we've seen your team
is struggling.
Yes.
This is the thing. The problem is, Erot has always produced the best footballers.
That was then. This is now.
That's a premise. Let's move to it. What we do is we train proper football. We train the Barcelona type of football at Erot. So we don't do the things please. We don't do the things that Cambo Eagles and others will go buy players. So when they said the Premier League was going to play, we got the young boys. So you will see inexperience with them. They're struggling. And I keep saying to the executive, please watch Pep Guardiola. He went to Barcelona. He basically got rid of the old guards. He built a team. In 2 seasons, they exploded. He came to Man City. He did the same. Let us encourage these boys. Let us be patient with them. Next season, they will explode because they will have sufficient experience. That's the culture of Everett. That's what we do. We don't go buying all of the ready-made players who will play for 1 or 2 seasons. We'll buy players and produce people like, the Mohamed Kalons and Junior Tumbus, the best that the country has seen.
Now, how are you managing your chairmanship of the board, chairman of the Premier League board, and that of the managerial role at the Oded Board?
There's nothing to manage. First thing first is, it's because I am the chairman of Erot. That's basically why I was even considered to be chairman of the Premier League board. It's not just in Sierra Leone. In South Africa, you have the same situation where one of the leaders of one of the chairmen of the club is appointed as the head of the South African Premier League. There's nothing. What you do is your duties are basically administrative. You organize the Premier League, you appoint people, you get things going. And then if you sit in a meeting where a decision has to be taken on other evidence, you recluse yourself because you manifest the bias. That's the thing. That's how professionals behave. Yeah. So there's not actually no
talk to me about the trophies you recently unveiled.
Well, yes. When we took over the league, we wanted to do things differently. So a lot of people say, oh, we get trophies all over the country, we can buy them. I said no. So we went to England and actually looked for a specialized manufacturer of trophies. And eventually we realized, in fact, the shop in England, in London, was basically an outlet for a factory in Italy. So we had to basically order the stuff.
How much do they cost?
And the gold trophy, it's £2,050. The silver, it's 1,800. The golden boot, I think it's about 500, and the golden ball about 700. We have the receipts of all of this, but basically, putting that together, you will see that the quality of this trophy is really, really, really good.
In your personal opinion, which team will you place a bet on? to win.
It's just the first leg. All the others might just end up winning the
Right. You're talking from the heart. I want you to talk from the head.
Well, as you see, FC Cologne has proven to be a good team. And let me talk football now. A lot of people don't understand why they are so cohesive and so disciplined. Now let's talk. This is a team that has played 6 years ago together at the Airtel Rising competition and under 16, and they are still together. That's what kind of thing you do. That's what we encourage in clubs. Port Authority. Port Authority is struggling. Lions, it has a good team.
So you place your bet on?
I think as we speak, Eastern Tigers have a good team. I foresee Diamond Stars will soon be in the first three. They have a very good young team.
I'm afraid I have to stop it there. Let's leave it there. Thank you very much, Chairman Emmanuel Saffa Abdulai, for making it to bottom line tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the program with the new chairman who has transformed or appeared to change the face of football, local football in Sierra Leone. We are back next week with another edition of the program, Bottom Line. This program was produced by executive producer, I would say, Tilly Kroma. Many thanks to all the producers here, the technicians who've put efforts together to have this program the way it has come out today. We're back next week with another program, another edition of The Bottom Line. Joseph Ibinda Kapua is the name. Goodbye.
SLBC Channel 31 and on YouTube and other social media platforms. Now, you can't afford to miss out on this one. Are you a football fan? Does a trip to a football match get you worried? Well, on Bottom Line this Tuesday, Premier League Board Chairman Emmanuel Saffa Abdulai talks to host Joseph Egbenda Kapua about